Hello and welcome back. We're going to start up our day 2 of art by making some nature drawings. Now this might come in handy on a better weather day if you haven't had one yet, but in the case that we don't get better weather, that's okay too. We have windows in our house, we can explore outside for brief amounts of time. You might even have plants in your house that work out for this. So we're going to be making some drawings based around nature. Now, right now we're in the middle of spring, which is this wonderful, wonderful time of the year when all of the plants start to regrow and blossom and bloom. We'll see flowers starting to pop out of the ground. And we're going to have some beautiful landscapes to look at. Now you might be saying, Miss Graham, I don't know what that means. What is a landscape? Well, there are a few different types of nature drawings that you can do. A landscape being one of them. When you go outside and you look at nature the way it is, if I go in my backyard and I look at the horizon where the sky meets the ground and I see the trees and the flowers and I see my garden beds, I can see my neighbor's tree lines, that is a landscape. What we see when we walk outside, that full, complete looking view of nature. Now, you could draw something like that if you want to challenge yourself a little bit. If not, we've already had practice with still life, and that's another way we can do a nature drawing. Another way that nature drawings are done is through scientific journals. Now, we might be thinking, well, this is art. I mean, art, how does that relate to science? Well, it does a lot, actually. Scientists go out and they study, and some parts of science involve going out and taking photographs and doing drawings of what they see, taking time to make sure we notice all the tiny little details. If I was doing a drawing of a leaf, for example, I would make sure that I have all of the veins and all the different variations in color to make sure that I take note of every little special thing about that leaf, because it's different than every other leaf I'm going to find. And you'll notice that while you're doing this. So I want you to go out, take the time to go on a little adventure, find yourself some things out in nature, either through a window or outside if you have the means of doing it. Find yourself something made in nature, like twigs and leaves and grass and flowers, and you can arrange them in a still life like we have in the past. I want you to take the time to draw out what you see, and I'm going to show you what that means.
Outside my house, I found a nice patch of flowers growing, and they were this lovely purple color. They were very tiny and dainty. I thought that would be perfect. Usually wouldn't recommend that you pick flowers. They're good to enjoy where they are, but for our purposes, we needed something to go inside with us. Then I stumbled upon this plant growing next to my tree. It had these really cool tiny little leaves on it, and I thought that would be really interesting too. So if you're taking the time to look carefully, you're going to find all kinds of interesting things with interesting details. For example, this tree. The leaves on it are an oval shape like a lot of leaves are, but if you pay close attention, there's a lot of spikes around the edges, and there's tiny little veins and details in them. So let's go see what we can do with this.
So right now, one thing that all of these have in common is that they're all made out of lines, shapes, colors, and they all have some kind of a texture or a feeling to them. So I could say that they're smooth, some of them. Some of them are hard and rough and spiky, like this. The leaves on this are very soft and smooth, but the twig that it sits on is very rough and a little bit spiky too. It's got a couple thorns on it. My stems are smooth and silky. So I've got lots of different elements of art coming together to make these objects, which makes it even more fun to draw. So let's go ahead. We'll arrange these however I see fit. So when I'm drawing, I can even start by practicing finding those lines. So I can see lines. If I were to go around all of these twigs, I see little lines. I can see lines here on the stems. On the stems of the flowers, I see shapes. The petals are kind of a rounded oval shape with a point on the ends. My leaves over here are very, very round on the end, whereas my leaf has some pokey spots. I've got my items arranged kind of off the page. I can look at one item very closely at a time. That might be one thing to do. Instead of just drawing it as a still life, I could look at one individual item at a time and practice that way. So if, for example, I was doing a scientific journal, I might really want to focus on just mimicking or copying what I see on one thing as best as I can. I can see that I made a line trying to make it as long as the flower stem. And remember, it's not just a straight line, but it actually goes around and has a shape. It's very thin, but I shouldn't be drawing just a straight line. I should have that shape of the stem in there. See how that makes a difference? Then I can start looking at the shapes of the leaves and the petals and trying to copy what I see. Drawing done just in pencil of all of the objects that I wanted. I could have done one, I could have done multiple. I could sit outside and draw what I see there. For my purposes, I have to do it here so that I can film it so you can see it. I would, of course, always prefer sitting outside and drawing while I'm enjoying nature and listening to the birds and drawing the plants that are actually in the ground still. But for right now, this is what we gotta work with. I would love to see anything you can come up with. I'd love to see you go outside and create and look at plants that are growing out in nature. Look at animals, trees. I would love to see anything you can come up with. I'd love to see you go outside and create and look at plants that are growing out in nature. Look at animals, trees. Anything you can come up with, anything you can find outside or through a window. When you are finished with this, you can absolutely add color as you please. I want you to take the time to make this as well done as humanly possible. I took a very long time doing this drawing. Now, I sped that up for your needs so that you didn't have to sit there and watch me draw for 20 minutes. But I spent about 10 minutes outside looking and adventuring, and then I spent another 20 on this drawing just to make sure that I did my very best. I could have rushed it, and it would have looked okay, but the most important thing is that we're slowing down and taking the time to notice little details. If I had not slowed down, I wouldn't have noticed all these beautiful veins and differences. When I look at this flower, I can see that there's a line going down the center of every petal, and it's much darker than the rest of the flower. Now, if I hadn't taken my time, would I have thought to put that in there? Or to put in the stamen and the little spots on the inside of my flower? Probably not. It's very important that you take the time to look at every little detail, because that's what makes you a better artist and helps you to grow and learn new things. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and you were able to enjoy this project. I hope that you take the time to do this again on your own. And just remember that you are so smart and so important and so loved and missed. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.